Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this Monday, October 29th. Just about done with the month. Hard to believe it's gone so fast yet again. And here we are, smack dab into winter now in Anchorage. For those of you around the region that have been waiting for some report of snow, we finally got some, at least in the western part of Anchorage, maybe about as much of a tenth. And you go up the road, and there's certainly a lot more up towards Sutton. Has had about 9.5, almost 10 inches of snow today. You want to check on the forecast if you're heading this way. Things are still moving around, but a little more slowly in some cases. 1-800-472-0391, your Alaska Weather Information Line. And again, St. Lawrence Island, that's 123 for the St. Lawrence Island forecast. Weather.gov/Alaska. And david.snyder@noaa.gov is how you find me. Ask me all the weather questions and send me all of your weather pictures. I'd love to see them. Here's a look at Bethel, a northeast view. Anchorage, of course, not the only place that got snow today. An official first snow for Bethel. So welcome to winter, everyone in Bethel and surrounding areas. Now, I did check on some of the cameras around a large part of the YK. Didn't see a lot of snow on the ground, at least in many of the other cameras. So maybe Bethel got a little bit of an early taste there. There will be more snow opportunities, though, as we go through the rest of tonight and into tomorrow. And you'll see that on the forecast maps here in just a minute. As we go through the rest of the evening hours, conditions should be improving for south central Alaska. As of late afternoon, we still had a winter weather advisory posted for the Matanuska Valley in the Anchorage area. Those are set to expire any moment, so we're not expecting those to continue through the evening hours as conditions are improving. No other watch warnings or advisories posted for this time. However, around the White Pass area are expecting about 2 to 4 inches of snow. That is not a warning level for snow in that region, of course, but travelers should be ready for changing weather conditions there and a snowy drive up or down the passes. So just be extra careful there if you're traveling up toward the Klondike Highway area or you have friends and neighbors coming in to see you. Coming in from Canada, make sure that they know that they're going to be encountering some changing weather conditions there. On we go to the satellite picture for your Monday, and you can see clouds moving across south central and southeastern Alaska. This wave moving north and east will produce a little more rainfall across the northern and eastern Gulf as we go ahead into the next couple days. A look back to the north and west shows a generally low deck of clouds and mostly clear conditions really across parts of the interior, west of Arctic Village, west of Fairbanks. And then here's the next weather system that's bringing in snow to parts of southwestern Alaska, and Bethel, as we saw, had already received at least a little bit of snow. A little bit of a westerly flow coming in across the Bering Sea. Everything south of this is under the effects of high pressure right now, so we're not going to see a whole lot of precipitation across the central or eastern Aleutians or into the Alaska Peninsula as a result of this for right now. But we'll keep an eye on what's going on just below and just south of this high pressure ridge as weather conditions are going to start to nudge up a little bit more out of the Pacific as we go ahead in time. In the meantime, high pressure, as we just saw in the satellite picture, it's kind of carved out a drier niche across parts of the interior here. 1,018 millibar high there. It's not terribly strong by winter standards in Alaska, of course. We see pockets of fog across the northwest coast and out across northern parts of the Yukon. As we head out to the west, you see low pressure sitting at around 1,002 millibars. Again, not a terribly strong storm, but enough to produce some snow across west and southwestern Alaska and into Norton Sound, Unalakleet, all the way down toward Amonuk. High pressure sitting across the Adak region around 1,019 millibars. Had some rainfall reported out at 2. And then rainfall again in northern and eastern Gulf Coast with drier weather coming in behind that and snowfall ending from west and southwest as it moves to the north and northeast. What about tonight? Low pressures moving into the northern Gulf. A front moving across southeastern Alaska will bring a little bit more of an onshore flow to southeast. Watch for rain showers there and high elevation snow. That includes again the White Pass area. Snow will be winding down from west-southwest to north-northeast as this wave travels north and east. Expect drier conditions to move into the Susitna Valley and across the Glen Highway. We'll still be dealing with some snow around the Copper River Valley, it looks like, as we head through tonight. But as far as we know, it doesn't look like it's really going to ramp up in anything more substantial than it has been across the Anchorage area and then northward toward Sutton and Chickaloon. Out across west and southwestern Alaska, we expect to see more snow falling around the Bethel region, maybe a couple inches there, and then an onshore flow for many of the southwestern capes. Winds should be generally light, though. High pressure to the south will quickly bring in some drier air. And as you see tonight, that front generally hovers south of St. Lawrence Island, north of St. Matthew, and all the way out toward just south of the Gulf of Manadir and into the Kamchatka Peninsula as a whole. High pressure sitting across the Gulf of Alaska kind of holds its dominance out across the Aleutian chain as we head through tonight. You can see areas of patchy fog may be found across south and western parts of the Bering and the North Pacific as we go through your Tuesday afternoon. Low pressure sitting across the Gulf will help move a cold front very slowly across the northern Gulf, Yakutat out toward Gustavus. Showers continue across parts of southeast, and low pressure hovers just south and west of Haida Gwaii. None of these systems are terribly strong at this point. We're not talking about any major wind makers or wave makers at this point. Low pressure sitting south of the high pressure ridge, though, is kind of lurking here, and it's going to try and creep northward just a little bit more as we head into Wednesday. Now, across western Alaska, we expect to see some areas of light snow continuing for parts of the interior of the Seward Peninsula, all the way out toward, let's say Nome, and then Unalakleet, and probably eastward toward Galena. Still southwest of Ambler, though. Doesn't look like it's going to reach quite that far. Ruby, you're probably looking at some snow. Arctic Village and south toward Eagle and Northway out toward Copper Center. Looking at some light snowfall continuing as we head through your Tuesday. But look at the north slope. Generally dry conditions. The passes should be pretty good, as you'll see here on our aviation forecast in just a few minutes. But along the Yukon and some of the low spots in the nooks and crannies, you'll probably run into at least some morning fog. And in some cases, that could linger a little bit longer. Around the Kenai Peninsula and down the Cook Inlet region, do expect some areas of light fog as well. For Wednesday afternoon, high pressure is still in charge across most of the interior, but it's expanding. It's clearing out more clouds. And for southwest, you'll probably get a returning glimpse of the sunshine there. Kodiak Island, south central, also seeing a better clearer sky. As we get into southeast, there may be some lingering showers around the Cross Sound region, but it looks like drier conditions for most of southeast, and again, a better chance of sunshine there. Low pressure is moving up through the Bering Strait. That's going to start up a south and westerly flow that'll take over the northwest coast as we head into the mid to late week, and that's going to change conditions around the Beaufort Sea coast as well. So watch for changing ice conditions, even as things are starting to freeze up a little bit more. Watch for that in your rain forecast here in just a bit. And remember those southern systems we were talking about? Well, here's one of them creeping up through central and eastern parts of the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. That dry southeast flow will cut away at some of the precipitation heading into Cold Bay, False Pass, Sand Point. But it will make it, and it looks like that front will creep its way into the southern Bering as we go into the midweek, and wetter winds trying to work their way into southern parts of southeast as we go for Wednesday as well. Here's your temperatures tonight as we head into early Tuesday morning. 30s and 40s for many in southeast, including Haines and Juneau and Sitka. Look for south central temperatures to dip into the teens and 20s, so a chilly night for sure. Prince William Sound, Cordova's a little bit closer to 30. Kodiak 26, Fairbanks down to 8. Fort Yukon down to 1, Arctic Village 15 below, 11 above for Utqiagvik and Barrow. And as you head into tomorrow, look for milder conditions, teens and 20s in the interior, 30s for South Central.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to your aviation forecast now, IFR conditions will continue across the Chugach, across the northern parts of the Gulf of Alaska into the higher train of southeastern Alaska with fairly widespread MVFR, some of that lingering across the Copper River Valley as well. Across the Beaufort Seacoast, we expect to start your Tuesday morning with marginal conditions, and you'll also see that across most of Norton Sound, southwestern Alaska with IFR fairly heavy from Iliamna and Lake Iliamna all the way west toward Cape Newenham, the Kuskokwim Delta region all the way up to Nunivak Island, and then into the Yukon Delta and parts of Norton Sound generally east of St. Lawrence Island. You'll also see that wrapping into northern parts of the Bering Sea with MVFR widespread across the southern Bering, a large part of the Alaska Peninsula, even Kodiak Island, and the Aleutian Chain for Tuesday morning. By the afternoon, you can see how IFR is stretching in again across northern parts of Norton Sound, stretching into Nome now and just about into the Bering Strait region, all over St. Lawrence Island, most of southwestern Alaska. Coastal areas in Bristol Bay should still be lingering around MVFR. MVFR also fairly widespread across the Gulf of Alaska. Higher terrain issues still holding out around IFR. We expect to see Chilkoot and White Pass likely lingering at IFR. Most of the interior, most of the Brooks Range passes, most of South Central really looking to be VFR, but the western side of the Alaska Range will likely be dealing with a better chance of MVFR leaning over to IFR as we go into Wednesday morning. Most of that, again, kind of flirting back and forth, but do look for improvements across more parts of the Alaska Range. As you head into the Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, and into Kotzebue Sound, we'll still be looking at IFR conditions through most of Wednesday morning. Southeast sees some gradual improvement. Higher train likely looking at MVFR now, including Chilkoot and White Pass for Wednesday morning. Some of our northern regions around Lynn Canal into Cross Sound, maybe even Stevens Passage, expecting to see MVFR for Wednesday morning. Hit and miss MVFR across the upper Yukon Valley, east of Fort Yukon itself, and most of the Beaufort and Chukchi coast looking at VFR conditions. And then widespread MVFR for the Bering Sea. IFR lingering around the Seward Peninsula into the Kobuk and Noatak region and the southern end of the Chukchi coast, the western end of the Aleutians, as well as the eastern chain, and starting to push into the Alaska Peninsula as we get into the afternoon for you there. Here's a look at your pass conditions now for Tuesday. Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass right now look to be VFR as we get started, and lingering throughout the entire day should be good weather. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass expected to be marginal conditions at least for your Tuesday. It might worsen a little bit more by Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning before improvement on Wednesday. Rainy Pass expected to hold at marginal levels Tuesday. Windy Pass expected to see VFR conditions pretty much all day long. And from there eastward, things look pretty good for Isabel Pass, Mentasta Pass leaning over to VFR conditions as the day goes on. Tanita Pass also expecting to see some improvement as we go through the day. Portage Pass, visual flight rule continues there really all of Tuesday, but Chilkoot and White Pass, as you saw, probably holding an IFR. Wednesday might be a little bit better. Tuesday morning freezing levels, we've got a lot of cold air moving into the interior. The surface freezing line down over the Kenai Peninsula, over southwestern Alaska, and then kind of bucking up into the Bering Strait region. 2,000-foot freezing levels holding across most of the Bering Sea. And then when you get into southeastern Alaska, you can see levels climbing fairly quickly, but you really don't even get into the 6,000-foot level until you're south of Haida Gwaii. Icing potential, there is a lot of moisture there, and those levels are coming down above 4,000 feet out in the west, above about 2,000 to 4,000 feet across west and southwestern Alaska, and then along the Alcan border into more northern parts of southeastern Alaska, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet there. Right now we're calling most of this isolated moderate. The jet stream shows our fast-moving river of air still over the North Pacific, around 150 knots or so, and then slowing down a little bit as it runs into a ridge across the eastern Gulf. We're also seeing a brief ridge across southwestern Alaska, and then our speeds picking up across the northern Gulf around 65 knots. This convergence, again, keeping some active weather going across south central and parts of southeast, and a southerly flow across the Beaufort Sea around 65 knots. At 9,000 feet, a broad westerly flow showing up here. You can see weather moving in from 15 to 20 knots across the Gulf, 15 to 20 across most of the interior. Winds really slowing down across the North Slope, and a broad west and southwesterly flow around 9,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, low pressure sitting across western Canada, dragging in northerly winds about 5 to 10 knots. Westerly flow across the Gulf 10 to 20 and into southeast, and southwesterlies coming up the west coast anywhere from 15 to 30 knots for most of the region. Turbulence then pretty isolated around southern parts of Cook Inlet and Kodiak Island, expecting a little bit of chop there, isolated moderate. Also around Nunivak Island out towards St. Matthew, generally below 5,000 feet.
Dual polarization technology is a major upgrade to the current radar system. It allows forecasters a better idea of what's actually out there and can help keep you safe.
Current radar technology transmits and receives information in the horizontal direction, which is very limited. Dual polarization technology, in addition to the horizontal, transmits and receives vertical energy, which allows forecasters to get information about the size, shape, and phase of the precipitation. We can use that information to better determine the precipitation type to expect at your given location.
There you have it. This new technology is currently being installed in radars across the country and is already being used by National Weather Service forecasters to produce better, more accurate forecasts. Learn more here and follow us. Want to know about the future of weather radar? Well, the National Severe Storms Lab has it here with its new phased array radar. Let's check it out.
It's a non-moving radar. It has 4 faces of the antenna, each pointing in different directions. One of the big advantages is that we're seeing so far. It can sample the area around the radar in less than a minute, maybe even a half a minute. And this is 5-6 times faster than what they can do today.
NSSL is leading the development of future weather radar with this project. Learn more here and follow us. The Storm Prediction Center is one of the NOAA weather partners. They are located in the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Greg Carbon gives us a glimpse into what the SPC does.
Our mission is to analyze and forecast severe thunderstorms and the potential for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds from those thunderstorms across the lower 48 states, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the primary missions of the Storm Prediction Center is the issuance of severe thunderstorm and tornado watches across the country when conditions appear to be coming together to support the development of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes.
The world-class meteorologists in the Storm Prediction Center specialize in severe weather and keeping you safe. Learn more here and follow us.
The National Severe Storms Lab is working on increasing the lead time for severe weather warnings. The national average for tornado warnings is currently 13 minutes, but more notice would be helpful, especially for those in charge of moving large groups to shelter. Warn on Forecast will help forecasters issue hazardous weather warnings earlier. The project will give them more info about the chances of strong winds, large hail, and even tornadoes.
Currently, warnings are created by forecasters looking at the atmosphere outside, understanding its volatility, and then comparing that to how they see the Doppler radar presenting what's going on inside thunderstorms. Warn on Forecast is an idea where we're going to take the massive amounts of satellite, radar, and surface data and stick them all into a very high resolution prediction model. And then by producing new forecasts every 15 or 20 minutes, the forecasters hopefully will be able to use that model to produce warnings that extend out to an hour.
Before the National Weather Service can use this tool, it must be developed and tested. One big challenge will be deciding how to get the model predictions to the forecasters.
I'm going to keep this one very low. I'm just adjusting the track.
These hazardous weather prediction models are going to produce a huge amount of output. And this fire hose of data is just too much for forecasters to handle in real time quickly. So in order to help deal with that, NSSL has developed a related project called Facets. And Facets is the methodology which will enable forecasters to focus very quickly on the most important threats.
Once Warn on Forecast and Facets are proven to be reliable and effective, then forecasters will be better able to inform you of threats nearby. Learn more here and follow us.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is located at the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. It is used for experiments that will allow forecasters to learn and apply new technologies.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is a really unique space throughout all of NOAA. And this is where the researchers and the operational folks come together in a common space to solve operational problems and to test new research tools that the research community is working on. The goal is to accelerate the transfer from research to operations of the newest tools and techniques.
People come from around the world to collaborate on this unique project.
We can bring together not only NOAA people, but also university people, faculty, researchers, private sector meteorologists, folks working in other countries in meteorology, forecasters can all come together and focus on what the problem of the day is with the forecasters.
Each spring, several experiments occur in the Hazardous Weather Test Bed. Learn more here and follow us.
What are you looking at? And what are you ignoring? Did you notice the NOAA logo in the corner? Forecasters have a lot of information in front of them too. Every second counts during severe weather, and decisions about where to focus are constantly being made. This could be even more challenging in the future. Phased array radar will produce 4 to 6 times more information than what we have now, which brings us to the question researchers are hoping to answer. Will more radar information affect forecasters' decisions?
From our past experiments, we've learned a lot about how forecasters think during the warning decision process, but we've also learned that those thought processes are very complex, and for that reason, we need a better way to be able to track forecasters' cognitive activity.
Inbounds and possibly golf ball sized hail.
An eye tracker is a piece of technology that is used to determine in real time where someone's eye gaze is located. And these eye trackers are typically video-based, which means a camera sits below a computer monitor, and with infrared light and vector analysis, we can determine where a person is looking and how their eyes are moving.
Eye tracking is already being used in the medical field and air traffic control. Using similar research methods, NSSL is discovering the benefit for weather forecasting too. Phased array radar will give forecasters a lot more to think about. Understanding their decision-making process will help researchers develop even more user-friendly tools. So what's the benefit for you? Even better weather warnings. To learn more, check us out online and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And time for a quick check of your sea ice update. The pack is filling in across the Beaufort Seacoast. No change really from what we were talking about yesterday, with winds coming in from the east and southeast, all ahead of the next storm that's coming in from the west and southwest. Eventually that will bring some stronger southwesterly flow and probably move the leading edge of the ice pack around a little bit more. Remember, this is concentration, not thickness, and both of those help to tell the complete story of the sea ice edge and the sea ice pack out there. Right now, marginal ice seen around Utqiagvik and north and east, and then down the coast toward Wainwright, but we're also starting to see ice filling in on some of the bays and passes there around Kotzebue Sound and then the upper end there, and also around the barrier islands around Shishmaref, and there may be some new ice forming a little bit further south into Norton Sound as well. So continue to watch for changes and make sure you're checking weather.gov/Anchorage/ice for the very latest information and winter weather outlook as well for sea ice conditions. Here's a look at southeast now. Winds coming in from the south and southeast in through Clarence Strait and through Stevens Passage around 15 knots or so. There may be some stronger gusts so as you head up toward Juneau and then northward into the Lynn Canal. Sustained winds up to 30 knots with a 5-foot sea. An onshore flow will be fairly steady, about 15 to 20 knots, 9 to 10 feet. In most areas a little bit further north, that could be as low as 8 feet. For Wednesday, north and westerly winds come down the coast about 15 knots. You're looking at about 7 to 8 foot seas there, the highest of which outside of Dixon Entrance. Inside the passage there, about 10 to 15 knots, generally 2 to 3 foot seas on that north and northwesterly flow for your Wednesday there in southeast. For south central, northwesterlies coming out of Prince William Sound around 15 knots. Look for 3 to 6 foot seas there across the north and western Gulf. Westerlies coming through the Barren Islands, 20 to 25, 6 to 9 foot seas expected. Light winds across northern and southern parts of Cook Inlet, 10 knots with 2 to 3 foot seas. You'll notice a little bit more of a northerly push as we get into Wednesday, 15 to 20 knots there. North about 10 to 15 across the northern Gulf, and outside of Prince William Sound, not too bad. 4 foot seas there, only 2 foot seas on the inside for your Wednesday. For southwestern Bristol Bay, we're looking at westerlies inside of Bristol Bay, 20 knots with 6 foot seas, 5 foot seas down the coast. A little bit more of a variable flow here, a north and easterly flow wrapping around high pressure that's centered up across the Alaska Peninsula and the chain. Anywhere from 15 to 20 with 4 to 5 foot seas, 6 foot seas east of Kodiak Island on Tuesday, becoming 5 to 8 foot seas, even 14 foot seas as you go further down the coast as that stronger easterly flow develops, looking for 25 to 35 knots on either side of the Alaska Peninsula, 25 knots inside of Bristol Bay, 4 foot seas there, and 5 foot seas inside of Shelikof Strait. For the Aleutians, winds will be fairly light on Tuesday. Remember, your high pressure ridge is sitting right on top of you, so 10 to 15 knots in most areas. A little bit of a faster flow on the south side of the chain, 25 knots with 8 to 9 foot seas, and southerlies across Adak, Kiska, and Attu, 15 to 20 with 7 foot seas there on Tuesday. As the ridge shifts around a little bit more to the north and east, you'll see faster winds picking up across the chain, 20 to 35, the highest of which will be on the south side of the eastern chain and south of Akutan, 35 knots with 15-foot seas, 15 to 25 in the west with seas up to 6 to 7 feet there. But some of your higher seas will generally be south of Adak, Atka, Nikolsky, and Unalaska. About 11 to 15 feet expected there midweek. For the west coast, 25 knots coming down through Norton Sound, 4-foot seas expected there. An offshore flow continues down to Hooper Bay, and then we get back into a west and southwesterly flow from Hooper Bay southward toward Nunivak Island, Macquarie, all the way down towards St. Paul, about 15 to 25, with 7 to 8-foot seas coming in from the west and southwest. As we get into Wednesday, an offshore flow reverses that. Remember, as high pressure is moving northward, we're gradually going to change that flow a little bit more to a south and southwesterly flow, all feeding into a storm that's a little bit further out to your west and southwest. So as this system moves in, winds pick up to about 15 to 25, 8 to 9-foot seas there from St. Lawrence Island out towards St. Matthew and further west. A look up north shows winds coming in over Bering Strait from the east to west, south and easterly winds coming off of the Chukchi coast, 15 to 20, 3 to 4-foot seas there. And out east, a wind from the west and southwest over the ice, 10 to 15. That starts to pick up a little bit more from the east and southeast on Wednesday. Higher winds, higher seas for the Chukchi coast, 30 to 35 with 9 to 12-foot seas developing there on Wednesday. Southerlies through the Bering Strait, 25 knots and 8-foot seas north of St. Lawrence Island for Gamble and Savunga. Here's a look at the map again tonight. Snow will taper off across south central as that moves off to the north and east. Rain showers expected for southeast as the front moves through. Look for snow in White Pass, maybe as much as 2 to 4 inches there, but no warnings, watches, or advisories posted for anyone. Light snow continues in southwest as we head into your Tuesday. High pressures developing across southwest and the Gulf. Look for a high to continue to break up the clouds across the interior with a new storm in northwestern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.